Matthew Brenner here from Double Your Dojo. I'm really excited because today we're with a special guest, and the special guest is actually one of my mentors actually growing up, and almost like a father figure to me growing up. And he is a multi martial arts school owner, and he didn't start though, kind of like I did, where martial arts was part of my life growing up. He started much later in life, and you're going to find out how he went from a medical salesman to martial arts entrepreneur, now running 7 locations, and how he went from one to the other and what the differences in life are now. So we're going to welcome Michael McCreery. Say hi.
Hello there, everyone.
So excited to have you on here today. And I think the first part that I mentioned about you being a big part of my life, like, so I've done martial arts my whole life. And when people see me, they're like, oh, okay, well, Matt, you do martial arts since you were a little kid. Your brother started, a chain of schools. And like, obviously, you're going to get involved in martial arts. Like, it kind of makes sense that you can have that path. But for you, you didn't have you weren't doing martial arts when you were a little kid. You had a totally different story. So tell us like a little bit about your background or how you ended up here.
So the story starts with we started our daughter. I have two children at the time, 6 and 3. We wanted our children to do things from the beginning and kind of set them up for success, learn how not to quit. So we set up our daughter in dance at 3. And when our son turned 3, we're like, oh, there's a new martial arts school. Let's call over there. That'd be a great thing for him to start and finish. And walked into the dojo and honestly sat there and watched him in class, mostly hiding behind a book I was reading because I was so aggravated by how he was acting. Like he just wasn't appropriate behavior in my mind. I didn't teach children. I don't know. And eventually my instructor, the person who was to become my instructor, came over and said, why don't you watch your child in class? And I said, do you not see him? Do you see what he's doing? And he said to me, and this is probably the first bit of wisdom he ever shared with me, stop staring at your child and look at all the other kids. And when I did that, I realized he was really just acting like a 3-year-old. But the thing that overly impressed me was that somehow this person had a class of 18 to 23 to 5-year-olds. And for the most part, they were listening to her. Like we couldn't get 2 kids to listen to us, my wife and I. And that's really what got us involved in the martial arts. We were just trying to figure out desperately how to be better parents. We just, we read all the books, we tried to do everything right, but there's this person teaching karate doing a way better job of controlling 18 kids when we were struggling controlling 2. And that was really my fascination to start with. Most people talk about, the fighting of it, of the martial arts, and they're in love with that. I don't care about fighting at all. Matter of fact, I'm the biggest pacifist there is. What I care about is the way martial arts changes people's lives. That's really what drew me in and what got me involved. So initially it's my son. My instructor, the person who's become my instructor, asks me repeatedly, when you start in karate, when you start in karate, when you start in karate. And I say to him over and over again, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. You don't understand. I have 2 kids. I have a full-time job. I don't have time for this. And eventually when I acquiesced and gave it, I was like, all right, listen, I'll do it. But there's no way I'm going to be able to fit twice a week into my lifestyle. It's just not going to happen. 6 months later, I was training 6 days a week. I was there from the time the school opened at 4 o'clock until it closed at 9 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. The time it opened on Friday from 4 to 6, and then Saturday morning from 9 to 12, every single week.
So were you annoyed at the time that the instructor kept on asking you? Or like how did you feel about that?
Um, no, I mean, I don't know. I've been doing it my whole life, not my whole life, but for the last 25 years now, 26 years, I've been doing the exact same thing. I mean, I keep asking until somebody says, or it appears to be uncomfortable, or I say, hey, permission to bug you. I don't automatically assume, like I can sense people and how they're acting. If somebody's annoyed with me, I won't say anything. But, for the most part, I try to always engage in a fun conversation with people, anybody that I'm talking to. And that gives you that opening to constantly ask, but you can always ask permission.
Mm.
I think that's a great tool if you're uncomfortable at walking up to a parent and saying, hey, permission to ask you a question.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's how you open it. So you don't feel like you're putting pressure on them.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm also not embarrassed to say, hey, please tell me to go away if I'm bothering you. Any of those things.
Mm. So at the time, did you have a job or you're just like free to go do
Full-time job. probably worked about 60, 65 hours a week. As I said, two young children. Here's what happened. So going back to the story about being there every day, 6 months in, I started working in their leadership program, not working, but volunteering in their leadership program to develop my own leadership skills. And the first time I high-fived a child in class, like I knew I was making a difference. And that's what I didn't have for the last 10 years. Like I didn't feel like I was making a difference in my job. And I was desperately trying to get out of the field I was in, but I made good money. I had a mortgage to pay. I had a family to take care of. And I couldn't just leave on a whim. I had to leave for the right situation.
Did you want to leave or like, what do you
I
think
wanted to leave desperately for 10 years. I hated the job.
what did you hate about it?
I wasn't making a difference. Like, and I'm a weird person. If people don't know me, I'm a very empathetic, sympathetic person. So, and mostly who I dealt with was pain modalities and pain management for people. And I knew I had products that could help people, but their insurance wouldn't allow it.
Mm.
So I'm meeting these people that I know I can make a difference in their life and I can't. And that's trouble for me. Like I have a real difficult time knowing I can help somebody, but I'm not allowed to do it.
Mm.
So, I was looking for years trying to find something, but like I said, I made a good living, had to take care of my responsibilities. And then this opportunity came up. So I just kind of changed the way I did my life. I left for work earlier in the morning so I could be home or not home at the karate school at 4 o'clock. I would literally leave my house at 7, go right to the karate school. As my day ended, my wife would meet us there. My son would meet us there with our two kids. She'd bring me dinner in a Tupperware container. I'd eat dinner in between classes and I'd stay there till 9 o'clock because I had decided that this was my mission. Like I needed to do this. I could make a difference. I think I could be good at it, at the teaching part. And if I was going to do it, I needed to dedicate 100% of my time to figure out how to do this right. And that was by being there for every class and observing and watching and being on that floor and learning. And I don't know whether your brother remembers this, but when I left there, change that, when you walked into the room, if you were blindfolded, you couldn't tell whether it was him or I in the school teaching. I took all of his mannerisms. I took his inflection, the way he said everything. I did it exactly like him because he clearly knew what he was doing. And I think, listen, if I'm trying to be great at something, then I'm going to do it exactly like that person until I get it internalized. And then I can personalize it later. But until then, I need to do it exactly like that person does it. It's silly to have a mentor, somebody that you believe in and you think can be super, has the attributes that you want, and then try to go, oh yeah, that works for you, but I'm going to do it this way. Do you know what I mean? So I just literally, if you walked in, I sounded exactly like him. And it was on purpose. And when I left, and eventually I became my own personality. But in the meantime, I needed to be successful.
So so you went from, okay, I'm bringing my kid to martial arts class, your son at the time. And was your daughter doing it too? Or?
She had started, Michael was there for 6 months, and then we all started about 6 months in.
Okay. So I feel like it almost like a flip, like a switch flipped, and you went from your son going to you going 6 days a week. Did that happen really like overnight? Or was there like more conversation? Like, how did you even go from one to the next?
I was in business. So I was always looking at businesses. So I was kind of observing the business, and it made sense to me over that time. And then when I saw that I could do it, actually taught a drill on a Saturday morning, the very first drill I ever taught, that's when I knew I wanted to open a karate school. And that was it. And really, it was just a reprioritizing of my life. Like, yeah, the question is, like I was saying, how am I going to fit 2 classes in? And suddenly I'm there 4 to 5 hours a night, right? Because I just changed my life. Something became more important than watching reruns of Cheers. Quite honestly, I mean, I grew up in a household where that's what happened every single night. Everybody got home from work. Everybody sat in front of the TV until it was bedtime. And that was the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it was. So in my mind, that's what it was. And then the priority of me seeing a world that martial arts could create made me dramatically change who and what I was in my life.